very informative. Everybody learned something? About 17. And I grew up fishing.
Part-time. I gotta go work this afternoon.
With the kids.
Your husband's your daughter.
One of my daughters. Yeah.
So part of getting everybody to
That's
success
a tough water.
is the class where everybody's eyes glazed over besides math. And that's probably economics, right? We're here to make the economics work. That's how farmers are going to succeed. You saw Jeff's little Richard Hayism. I thought I saw Richard with a t-shirt that said that. Huh?
You should.
Farmers gonna make money, they go farm.
That's probably, that's the thing I remember the most about Richard as well. And we're very fortunate that we have somebody that's not only on the forefront of what's going on legislatively, but also somebody who's a businessman and who has to deal with these issues, the pricing, the balance, every day. So we're very fortunate to have you, Senator Russell Ruderman.
Thank you. I'm Russell Ruderman. I'm here wearing two hats at a time, although you're not from the principal. One is I'm state senator from Puna and part of Kaiser district. And in my legislative role, I'm very involved in local food. Because that relates to my other hat, which is I'm the owner and founder of Island Nationals Market. And we've been big advocates for local food since before it was a buzzword. And we worked really hard on that issue. Now I want to talk about some of the challenges that we face growing local food and some of the opportunities that we have to overcome those challenges. And I'll try to talk as quickly as I can. One of the challenges is that the demand for local food is kind of soft. There's been, as was mentioned, there's been quite a few local food, buy local programs started. There's a state level one, which almost nobody knows about. There's a county one, which has been better marketed. But it's not consistent. It's not consistent that consumers know what to ask for when they go into a store or a farmer's market or a restaurant. That's compounded by the fact that there's some confusion in labeling. Unlike every other region in the world, Hawaii has not taken steps to protect our brand. So you can put the word Hawaii on any kind of food you want, and it can be entirely made on the mainland. I can cite many examples of it. I'm not going to pick on people, but a good example of that is coffee blends. Every coffee farmer I know hates blends and considers them to harm their brand and their price and their profitability. But we can't seem to. I tried to pass a bill 2 years ago, but this year actually, to just require truth in labeling on those packages. Not even to outlaw the blends, because there's a very strong lobby that opposes that. Just to require truth in labeling on the front of the package, and even that was opposed by these big money lobbyists that have unreasonable influence. So we haven't protected our brand, and so it's hard to create demand for a brand that is not really well defined. There's institutional barriers to local foods that are tremendous. Perhaps the biggest one, which I'll talk about a little bit in depth in a minute, is Department of Education. The single biggest market that there is for food in our state is our schools. And they have 99% mainland food from one big company who, as you can imagine, makes a lot of money providing that, and they make sure that doesn't change. So there's a tremendous resistance to change in institutions like the Department of Education. The same thing applies, although smaller markets, to places like hospitals, our university, prisons, things like that. It's difficult to crack open those barriers. I did get past, one of my very few legislative successes was we passed a bill to create a farm-to-school position. We had asked for 2 positions for at least 2 years, one in the Department of Agriculture and one in the Department of Education. What we got was 1/4 of that. We got 1 position in the Department of Agriculture, which is great. It's a lot better than nothing. It's not what we need, but the way I see it is this wall between our farmers and our schools is this giant, thick concrete wall. And my hope is that creating this position and elevating the issue is a tiny crack in that wall, and that we can keep on hammering at it and maybe be able to walk through it one day in the near future. I'm going to give you a brief example. I think our charter schools are perhaps going to be the place where we make our first significant progress in that, because they're a little bit more independent in what they can do. My company, Ireland Naturals, about 8 years ago, was invited to develop a school lunch and breakfast program for a small charter school in my area. I won't name them, but they are represented here. We spent about 300 person hours developing this program. We got it so that we got the dollar requirement, the nutrition requirement. We taste tested it with the students, the teachers, and the parents. And everybody was on board, and we were all ready to go, and there was one person in the Department of Education, bureaucracy, that said, no, you can't do this. I don't have time for it. And so we gave up, they gave up, we gave up, and the situation has changed now, but I point to that as an example of this tremendous resistance to change. I'm not trying to be pessimistic here, but I'm trying to be realistic. I don't think you can overcome an obstacle if you can't see it clearly. So beyond the obstacles that we can see of price and shipping and adaptability, there are some hidden obstacles of institutional resistance to change that we have to overcome. We have to recognize them and see them and find a way to overcome them. Another big challenge that any local farmer faces is the cost of farming in Hawaii. And a lot of that has to do with the cost of inputs. We have to import most of our farm inputs, fertilizers, treatments, sprays. So that's something we have to solve. Shipping is not ever going to be dirt cheap again, I don't think, like it once was, which in some ways is a positive for local foods because it should help us compete. But for farming, as long as we're dependent on imported farm inputs, that puts us at a tremendous disadvantage. In that regard, we have to learn to develop our own inputs. There are several really exciting things on the horizon, in my opinion. One is Korean natural farming, and I'm glad that Mike DuPont is here and several of the farmers union people that are big advocates for that. I think that's one of the big solutions. I also think that simply growing some of our own feed and fertilizer crops are a big part of the solution. In that regard, I pushed really hard this year to try to legalize the growing of industrial hemp. And hemp, to just be clear, is completely separate from marijuana. It does not have THC content, but it does have tremendous food, fuel, and fiber capacity. It was a fundamental crop of this country for our first 150 years. And it's one of the things that can grow in marginal soils. Any farmer can grow it, produce feed for their chickens, maybe fuel for their tractors, cover crops. And so I think learning to grow and creating an infrastructure for farm inputs is very important. I also think that there's a tremendous opportunity for things like aquaponics, aquaculture, and hydroponics. In my neighborhood, which is Lower Puna, we have a lot of wonderful things that farmers want. We have rain, a fairly cheap labor, we have fairly cheap land, but we don't have any dirt. So we can overcome that with some of these things like developing the dirt or learning to farm and things like aquaponics. There was discussion earlier about the need for farmers to make money, and so in addition to providing vegetables for our local schools and plates, they also have to be profitable. And in that regard, I think it's important to recognize that one of the, to me, Hawaii's brand in terms of economic success, it's got to do with high-end premium products. If I may throw in the word organic, I mean the best Hawaii product is an organic, premium, 100% Hawaii grown product. And we see that kind of success in places like the coffee and the magnut industry. And in Pahala, which is in my district, which Jeffrey alluded to in his maps, we have what really is the best success story in the state on former cane land. where a group of farmers have developed a worldwide respected brand of coffee. And I think that we have that potential in almost every region in Hawaii. But and the reason I say these high-end things, I know it's the opposite of feeding the people, but I think most farmers have to have a money stream as well as, you know, the bread and butter, whatever their avocation is. And I think in that regard, coffee and macadamias and things like that are expensive and have a very high brand value because they're top quality made in Hawaii, have an important role to play. And in my mind, the next big crop like that is chocolate. I'm sorry, chocolate. And yes, just like coffee and magnuts, a lot of them will be exported. But we can learn to eat chocolate here, you know. Okay, some of this is a little piecemeal, please forgive me. At Island Naturals Market, we have about 60% local food in our produce department. That's been a result of many years of trying really hard to do so and cultivating a local farmer network. We're the primary vendor for dozens of farmers and hundreds of food manufacturers. And I'm here to say that the market is there. There's plenty of market for local foods if we can get it in front of people and tell the story correctly. You know. We do a few things to promote local food that I'm happy to share with any other retailer or vendor or farmers market booth. We, first of all, we put a lower markup on local foods than we do on mainland foods. So we try to give them an advantage in price. We put them in a prime spot, an eye-level spot. We give them good signage if it's available to try to tell the story. This is all about marketing, but marketing is a big part of this. You know. We also invite them to come in and do demos because people really respond when they get to meet the person who's actually making the product. Oh, you make this, or you grow this, and then it's personal, and it explains, I think, the importance of buying local. I think one of the biggest, pardon the pun, but I think the low-hanging fruit in the local food issue for me is value-added production. Yes, it's important to grow crops, grow vegetables, but let's learn to make things with it, and then we can compete with the rest of the country and the rest of the world. In that regard, Daniel Young is doing very exciting things with Appeal Road Community College. But I'll give you a couple examples of what I mean. At Island Naturals and at any food store, we import amazing amounts of bottled beverages from the mainland. And we pay by the pound to import these pallets of stuff that are 99% water. And it's kind of expensive because shipping was a big part of it. And I'm thinking of lemonade, for example. The same thing that you said about iced tea, bottled water. I hate to say soda, but soda's in that category too. But let's think about lemonade. It comes in a glass bottle, it's mostly water, and the glass bottle is very heavy, and we ship it here thousands of miles. It's a pretty low-tech product. And in fact, we have every input. We have the lemon, we have the water, we have the right? And sugar, if you want to use sugar. But we could make that here. The problem, I think, is that we don't have a beverage container infrastructure here. So everyone has to import their containers right now, which costs almost as much to import empty as it does to import full. So the economics don't work out. And on the other side of the point, we ship recycled glass back to mainland at a tremendous cost. We pay, maybe if I'm wrong, I think it's $300 a ton to ship glass back to mainland here. It's worth $30 a ton, and I guess that. And then somebody else gets the job of remaking it into glass bottles and shipping it back. So we really, I mean, this is to me something we can solve. And I ask all of you to help solve it. The other, another really big category for value added in my mind is snack foods like chips, for example. Again, we import pallets and container after container of chips, which are 99% air in that bag. And we're paying for that shipping. They're lighter than the lemonade, but we also pay a cubic foot charge for shipping. So maybe we'll never be growing cheap potatoes or corn here, but we do have sweet potato, taro, ulu, things we can make chips out of. And even if you're making corn chips, there's no reason we can't put in some local onions, some local ginger, some magnuts. It's an opportunity if we were making here to use some local products. So I think it would be foolish to ignore the tremendous opportunities for value-added food manufacturing. You know, if we move our local food meter 10%, that's worth about $300 million a year in terms of direct costs that stay in the state. And in my mind, the beverage and chip categories I just mentioned are each more than 10%. So besides the $300 million we don't ship out of the state, there's the secondary effects of jobs, you know, and you know, the carbon footprint of the shipping, and local control over our food, and more opportunities to use local ingredients. Okay. I started about 8 years ago. I tried to start a local produce company. I'm using this as a lessons learned thing. I thought we needed a local distributor because a lot of farmers, you know, they're not marketers and they're not truck drivers really. I thought it would be really useful if we could have a distributor of local produce. The company ultimately failed for a variety of reasons, most of which are my own fault and some of which are related to the recession that came along. But I did learn an important lesson doing that, which is we have to grow our demand along with our supply. You can't just tell people grow more food. This has been said many times, you have to be able to sell that food. And especially if we're talking about fresh produce, it has to coincide. You know, demand this week and the supply next week is the prescription for bankruptcy, and vice versa. It's the same thing. You have to grow those things together. It's one of the things I love about the idea of value-added processing, because then we don't have to sell it right away. If we could, for example, every farmer can grow kale, it seems. And if you were to dry kale and flavor it, it becomes this expensive superfood you can ship around the world, kale chips. So we could dry things, we could freeze dry things, we can make them into products. And that takes away the need to sell it right now, which is one of the big challenges. But we need to grow our demand. We need not just farming more, we need to grow the demand. And that demand has to be consistent and very, very strong. Part of that is, as has been mentioned, when you go into a restaurant or a supermarket or even a farmer's market, ask, is this local? If it's a local product, if it's a local looking product, fish, bananas, whatever, ask, is it local? And demand that it be local. And try to resist the people who are running kind of a scam with the name Hawaii on it. I'm a big supporter of farmers markets, but my frustration there is you go there and you see stuff that is clearly mainland commercial produce. I say, oh, is that local? Oh, it's organic there. And it's no way there's some big head cabbage at 79 cents. There's no way it's local and organic, but there's no truth in labeling there. So demand that of your supplier wherever you are, whether it's a farmer's market or a restaurant, and ask for local foods. You can also set examples, you know, when you go to potlucks, when you go to your neighbors, when you go to gatherings, set examples. We can use that, and that's an opportunity to tell the story of the product. Someone says, oh, anything from purple sweet potatoes, in my opinion, is just gorgeous. And always create some discussion about it.